Continue with our study of the Sefer Mareh Yaakov, written by the Dr. Seaman. As with every week, we're going to begin with something from this week's Parsha. This week we read Vayakel and Pekudei and Parshat Chodesh, 10 glorious columns of laning here, there, and everywhere. I'm going to bring the second pasuk in Parshat Pekudei, and we're going to analyze it as if the Sefer had continued. So the book was written. He managed to publish. We have two newcomers with us, so I'm just going to give a little background. He managed to publish all of Sefer Breshit, and there are some handwritten notes on the beginning of Parshat Shmot, but they had not been published. And yet, what he does at the very beginning of the book is he gives general principles as to what each reading note signifies about the word or the word group that goes together with it. So the idea of this perush is that we know that not only were the words given at Sinai, and not only were the vowels given at Sinai, we also know that the notes, the actual way that the Torah is sung, is performed, were also Torah Moshe Sinai. That they were in fact given at the same time. They serve several purposes. Certainly they serve as punctuation. So we know that there are some notes that tell you you're at the end of the sentence, or you're at the end of a major clause and you have to pause. And there are some notes that we know that tell you that this word is connected to the word after, so that you don't pause in between. There are some notes that are very emphatic, flagging of a word, and there are some notes that perhaps will downplay a word or will make you think that it's something in more of an undertone. The purpose of this parish is to tell us that, or the thought behind this parish is that every word or group of words that God assigned a note, God assigned that note for a particular reason. So this is a drush. This is not a pshat. This is not a simple translation. This is an interpretation that adds something different to each word based on the note that it's assigned. And what we come out with when we do that is something that is quite different from what we would see in a lot of other parushim. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to, it's not in the book yet because we're going to go through Parshat Pekudei. We're going to go through the second sentence there. For reference, if you want, if somebody's looking it up, we're in Shmot Lamed Chet, Pasuk Kaf Beit, 38th chapter of the book of Shmot, and the 22nd sentence. And the sentence reads, Uvitzalel, and Bitzalel, ben Uri, ben Hur, the son of Uri, who is the son of Hur, Lamate Yehuda, who belongs to the tribe of Judah, Asa, did, ate, untranslatable, Kol Asher Tziva Hashem et Moshe, everything that God commanded to Moshe. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at it with the notes, and the word Uvitzalel and Bitzalel, you'll notice underneath it has a particular note. This note is called a tavir. This is a rounded shape with a dot in between. So I've circled the note here just to try and make it stand out a little bit more. And what we've learned through the parish about that note is that this is going to symbolize something that is sheltered, something that has an element of safety or sheltering about the word. So you have to realize that in all the balagan of people having creative ideas and thinking about how they're going to manage to do things, we have Bitzalel, who is given the role of assigning everybody the task that they're going to do, supervising everything. So quite obviously he is the supervising and calming influence amongst everything that's going on there. So quite obviously he is the source of shelter. He's the source of calm amidst this storm of everybody saying, well, I don't know exactly how to do that. I don't know, I need help. And quite obviously we have Bitzalel, and when we're talking about him, we see that he gets the tavir. He gets the note that tells us that he's the source of stability there. And then we go into his lineage, Ben Uri. This is a mercha under that. this note slightly connects us to what's come before, but mostly pushes us forward to what's going on. So we're talking about Bezalel's lineage, so quite obviously it's got to connect to him. But we're saying that Uri perhaps is not his main influence, but then Hur. Who's Hur? Anybody here know who Hur is?
Yeah.
Okay?
Ben-Hur.
No. Hur.
He's the one who died during the...
So Hur is Miriam's son. Miriam, Moshe's brother, has a son, and his name is Hur. And when Moshe goes up to Mount Sinai before the Egel HaZahav, he puts two people in charge. Aaron v'Hur. Hine Aaron v'Hur imachem, mi ba'al dvarim yavo lehem. Here, Aaron and Hur are with you. Anybody who has something that they need to settle should come to them. And after the story of the Egel, Hur no longer appears. Why? We had an angry mob. And then we learn afterwards that Aaron was convinced to do something very unseemly. Well, part of it is because of Hur's murder. So Hur is murdered in the story of Egel. We don't go over it, but this is obviously somebody who is learned, somebody who is committed, somebody who has lineage. So with that tikha, that it leads us back. It tells us that this is something that's going to sort of close off the lineage. What Bezalel is getting, he's getting that role of leadership, that role of knowledge, that role of being able to stand up for what's right from his lineage. Ben Uri ben Hur. So Mercha and Tipcha. Mercha leads to what's going on. Tipcha closes off the idea, and then, in fact, if you read it properly, there's a very slight pause after that. So this is separated out from the fact that he is limate, which has a munach. A munach, you'll notice, is a straight line and then a line going forward. So what's this going to tell us? This is going to tell us that this is something that is separate from what has come before, and it's going to lead us into something new that comes after. So not only are we coming from the lineage of Ben Uri ben Hur, we're coming from the principles that Hur stood for, we're also saying that the tribe that he came from, it's not Levi. And we were talking at the beginning of this parsha about Elef Gudei Mishkan Haidut Asher Pukar Al Pi Moshe Avodat HaLeviim. We talk about what the Leviim are supposed to do. But now we're going to come to something different. Some of the ideas and the influence are not coming from the side of Kedusha, from the side of Levi. They're coming from the side of Malchut. They're coming from the side of the tribe of Judah. So we're saying we're coming from a tribe that's got not only the aspect of making this something special, but the tribe of making this something that will also have the potential to influence leadership. So the tribe is separate from the fact that it's Hur. So that's why we've separated it out with the munach, with a note that tells you that it's separate, and we're coming into another concept. We get to the word Yehuda. Yehuda has an etnachta under it. This is a note that tells us that we're at the middle part of the sentence. So this note has a major pause after it. And it's normally, because if you look at the shape of the note, it's something that has quite a stable base, and perhaps something that points up from there. And again, Judah himself was, yet again, an inspirational leader, somebody who came to all of the brothers and told them that this is what we need to do. So his influence also comes into Bezalel's background to tell you that he's going to have that aspect of leadership about him, not only aspect of being able to make decisions, and not only aspect of standing up for what's right, but the aspect of leadership as well. So again, he gets that stability and that upwards look from both Hur and from Judah, and from Yehuda. But in particularly from Yehuda, who gets the etnachta. Asa, he did. This is a zakef gadol. You'll notice the note is a straight line with two dots beside it. So when we see a note that's got multiple parts to it, we're going to say that this is something that has multiple ideas behind what this word is going to tell us. And not only that, besides the two dots, it again has that straight line, which is going to separate it from what's going to come after it. So obviously, Bezalel didn't do all of these tasks by himself. Rather, he did it as the supervisor, as the one in charge, but quite obviously others were doing it. So we've got that two-part aspect to it. He was in charge, it was all under his responsibility, but quite obviously others helped. And yet his leadership separated himself out from everybody else. So he gets this three-part note that tells us he supervised it, others did it, but he stood alone as the final arbiter of what's got done. And again, we see that directly from the note that's there. And then we have a fascinating one, 8. 8 is untranslatable. It has no English equivalent. And we've come across this note before. This is the Tavir that we saw in Bezalel. So this is something that's going to tell us that there's a sheltering influence. Something that's unnamed that's going to be a source of value here, that's going to be a source of comfort here. Well, how did the menorah get made? God said you should make a one piece of gold menorah, and Bezalel said, I don't know how to do that. And Moshe said, I don't know how to do that. And the gold went into the fire and the menorah came out. 8, the untranslatable stability comes from the fact that God is participating here in a hidden role. Untranslatable, something that you don't understand, that isn't part of the world, is going to lead to part of the stability of the Mishkan being built. The menorah is going to appear by miracle. And that's an incredible insight that comes from a untranslatable word with a stabilizing influence. God acting behind the scenes is going to participate as well.
Just the fact that that word is there?
Right? 8 says nothing. 8 is not a word that has an English equivalent. There's no way to translate it.
Right.
And how are you going to get stability out of something that is untranslatable? You get stability from the fact that something that's hidden, that's not seen, that's there but not there, is going to give you part of the Mishkan. You're going to have God participating in this as well. There are lots of things to say about the word 8. 8 doesn't have a translation, and yet it goes Aleph Tav. It goes from the beginning to the end. It's got everything included in it. So there are sort of hidden secrets behind this word that doesn't have a meaning or translation to it. But we're going to go on so that we can get to the Perush. Kol Asher Tziva. So all those 3 words have one note. So remember that this is a mercha, so this is that forward sweeping note. It's going to slightly be connected to what's come before, but mostly it's going to focus us forward onto what's going to come afterwards. So everything that was commanded is slightly connected to the fact that God did command to make the menorah, but it's going to just come without anybody else's participation. But mostly it's going to come to Hashem, God's name, with a tipcha. This is God's name in the aspect of mercy. So there is going to be the fact that we're going to close off with the fact that all of the things that you're going to do are going to be, God is going to look favorably onto them, and He's going to give you sort of the benefit and help to make you able to do what you're supposed to do. And again, remember, Tipcha closes off the thought, has a slight pause after it. And then we get Et Moshe, to Moses, with a Sof Pasuk. Sof Pasuk is what comes at the end of the sentence. It is a stabilizing influence. It tells us there's some stability here. So it's those 2 dots that come after the last word in the sentence, and also the note underneath that tells us which syllable gets accented. I'm sorry I didn't write that in, but that's part of Sof Pasuk as well. So what's happening here? Moses always wanted to participate in everything that's going on in the temple and in its construction, and that's why we get, at the end of Parshat Pekudei, Moshe actually getting credit for doing all of the assembly work. But his role stands apart. He always wanted to be the one who's doing it, and yet he also wants to give the people credit for doing it by themselves. So he's standing there alone as both the major contributor and both as somebody who's not doing anything and letting everybody else do everything. So the pause that you get after the tipcha, followed by the stability of the sof pasuk, tells us Moses is sort of standing alone, as if he's doing everything and as if he's doing nothing. And again, that summarizes the thought. And we have a rather banal sentence that all of a sudden is telling us some very, very deep things when you look at it with the depth that the parish can give us. So hopefully, we always questioned, when we're at Parshat Noach and we're telling a big story and things that involve people and lives are happening, that the parish stands up very well then. What's it going to do in Parshiot where we're talking about korbanot, about sacrifices, and talking about the building of the Mishkan? We see there's a lot of hidden stuff that's coming out when you use the tools that this parish is giving us.
Go ahead.
So we're going to continue on. We are in the section on Noah. So the book is divided into, each chapter has a blue divider. So the second blue divider will be the one for Noah, and then each page in that section is numbered.
82, 83.
Oh, no, further. We're at
Yeah,
85.
We're on page 85.
85, yeah.
85.
Yeah.
We are Bereshit Tet, the 9th chapter of Genesis, the 16th verse, Tet Vav. So we're on page 85, and again, for those of us who haven't seen this parish yet, we're going to go over the mechanics of what's going to happen here. So what we've got is we're dividing out the sentence into each word or group of words that has a note to it. It's going to be written in the right-hand column in the Hebrew with the note under it. It's going to be written in the left-hand column in his English translation. And beside that, there's going to be a number. And then we're going to go down either to that page or to the next page to the corresponding number, and we're going to see how he has interpreted how that note is influencing this word. And what we realize is that each word or each word group that's assigned a note is not a single word. It's a paragraph in and of itself. It's telling a whole story once you've matched it together with its note. So we are number 1, v'haita, and it will be. So this is the mercha again. This is that note that is slightly connected to what's come before, but mostly sweeping us forward into what's going to come after it. Number 1, in order to grant safety and calm to all inhabitants of the earth, the treaty shall be a proper guarantee, and it will be a constant reminder of its effectiveness, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark in relationship with the beginning of the previous sentence. So because it's a mercha, it's going to be connected to what's come before. We're talking about the rainbow that's going to come after any element of rain, and God's promise that is going to be a sign that there will not be all destructive forms of all earth destructive forms of rain anymore. So specifically, there is a treaty that God is going to supervise between himself and between people, and this is going to be connected to v'zacharti et briti, that God is going to remember what he's going to promise to the people. But we're going to flow forward into hakeshet, the bow, number 2. This is a tipcha. This is again that closing note that focuses us backwards on what's come before and then pauses slightly afterwards. The bow, number 2, the bow shall serve as a constant indicator of the functional continuation of the treaty as shown by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So not only is there going to be an agreement, there is going to be a constant sign that the agreement is still in force. So the rainbow is going to give us not only confirmation, it's going to give us reassurance. And it's going to close the fact that that it will be, not only will the treaty still be in force, but the symbol that the treaty is still be in force will be there as well. And again, we'll remember, after Tipcha we've got a pause, and then we get to Be'anan, number 3, on the cloud. This is Etnachta. So if we remember that stabilizing note that's in the middle of a sentence, it has that very stable base, perhaps with something in the center pointed up. So we're going to expect something with stability and maybe a little bit of elevation about it.
What's that note called again, sorry?
Etnachta.
Etnachta.
You also have the one under the bet.
So we'll talk about that once we've read the paragraph about it. Since this sign will appear on the cloud, it shall be noticeable by everyone as a natural symbol of a treaty in the sky. And we're on page 86 now because the text continues there, as stressed by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So the fact that it is somewhere up above and that it is part of nature will make people realize that there is going to be stability even in Anan, even in something clouds that were a threatening sign of the flood before. So don't forget, these are people who have just gone through the end of the world for them, and every cloud can obviously be something that is exceedingly anxiety-provoking, and yet seeing a cloud now, especially after having seen a rainbow, will be something that is reassuring, that rain will come in a productive way, that it won't come in a destructive way. Or itiha, and I will see it. This note is called a revi'i. This is sort of a diamond shape. I'm sorry, we were going to go over the makaf on the word be'anan. So we'll remember that, the straight line that's under the beit in word number 3 in be'anan. We'll remember that Hebrew words in general will have the accent on the last syllable. Occasionally, one of the other syllables will at least take part of the accent. So this is telling us that there's a little bit of focus on that it's going to be in the cloud, be'anan. So we're going to get the word having not 100% of the focus on the last syllable, be'anan, but we're going to focus on both the fact that it's in and the cloud, be'anan. So that gets it. I don't know if you can hear the difference, be'anan and be'anan. So what we've done is we've shared some of the pronunciation, some of the stress of the word onto the first syllable there. Uritiha, number 4, and I will see it. This is a rivi'i, so this is a diamond shape that's on top of the tav there. This note tells us that this word has emphasis and it can stand alone. It sort of sits there as something that we look at and we want to emphasize, and we can sort of rest and pause there, and this word will give us something that has its own source of focus. When you look at it from below, and I will see it from above, verifying your attitude and conditions, it shall be a checkpoint of its durability and efficiency as denoted by the broad meaning of the reading mark. And we'll come to the thing in the brackets in a second. So what he's telling us is that if you look at a rivi'i, you have this very symmetrical diamond shape. And if you're looking from below, you're going to see the same thing that God is seeing from above. He's going to see that looking down at you, And you're going to see that looking up at him. And again, a lot of this parish is focused on just the shape of the notes and the placement of the notes. So when you are forced, and Revi'i always comes on top of the word. So when you're forced to look up at the rainbow, you're going to see God promising down to you. And when God is looking down on the rainbow, he's going to see that he's promised to give to you. So it's going to be that influence, and in and of itself, the seeing of it is going to give you that visual stimulus that is going to allow you to realize that the treaty is still in force. And he's referencing here in Numbers 21:9. There is a particular incident when the people of Israel are coming close to the land of Israel. They come to a field and there are a whole bunch of snakes, and the snakes start to bite and kill people. And what does God tell Moshe to do? God tells Moshe that he should make a snake out of metal. He should put it on top of a stick. He should raise that stick up, and everybody who looks at the stick, their snake bites will be cured. So Rashi asks the question: Does this statue of a snake, is that really what's making the people live or die? Rashi goes on, Ella bisman, rather at the time, she Yisrael mistaklim klape mala, that the people of Israel look up towards heaven, umishabdim et libam liaviam shebashamayim, and they subjugate their hearts to their Father in heaven. Hayu mitrapeim. That's when they would get better. So what are we doing here? We've got exactly the same idea. You're not looking at the cloud and focusing on the cloud. You're looking at the cloud and seeing the intent behind it. You're looking at the rainbow and seeing the intent behind it. You're seeing that God promised you that he's not going to make an all-encompassing disaster again. And therefore, when you look at the rainbow, you have that reassurance. And when you look at a cloud, you don't have that sense of dread. So when you look up, Uritiha, you're going to look up and you're going to see a source of stability, and you know that he's looking down and providing that stability. That's the evenness of this treaty that's being formalized here.
That's very cool.
Lizkor, for remembering, number 5. This note is a pashta. This note comes on top of the word and tells us that this word is going to be emphasized slightly, and it's going to lead us forward into what's going to come after it. Number 5, for remembering. Thus the bow shall be a universal symbol for remembering the interaction between heaven and earth, as suggested by the directional shape of the reading mark. And again, a lot of the focus is both on placement of the notes and the shape of the notes. So what we see here is a pashta also looks like the first half of a rainbow. Goes from the earth and goes up towards heaven. And then you're seeing that, because you see that, you can assume that you're going to get something that's going to come back down to you as well. Because you see that there is trust from you going up to heaven, you can expect reciprocation from heaven in honoring the treaty that is being made now. Brit, a treaty. This one has a munach. So this is part of a zakef katon. Munach, we'll remember, has that. So we're looking at number 6, and under the resh there, you're going to notice that you've got that note that has the straight line that separates you out from what has come before, and then that line underneath that goes forward and is going to bring you into the new issue that this word is going to tell you. So Brit, a treaty, number 6. It shall also verify that both parties are obliged to adhere to a treaty which was commonly accepted and agreed upon, to observe its conditions precisely as expressed by the shape of the reading mark. So one of the things that we say about a treaty is Hine anochi koret brit. I'm literally cutting a deal, cutting a treaty. What does cutting mean? Cutting means separating out one thing from another. Whenever you make a deal, you had a whole bunch of possible ways that the interaction could go from there forward. And what you're saying is, no, I've committed to this being the agreement, so all the other possibilities are not there anymore. This is the one that we have cut out from all of the possibilities, and it continues this way from here on in. So this is the deal. You can't renegotiate it again. It doesn't have the ability to go back and say, oh, maybe we can throw in this, maybe